and build a sustainable learning framework. It also simplifies change management by allowing you to transition individuals and teams from a current state to an AI-driven future in a more controlled, manageable way. You can then more easily define handoff protocols and foster a true human agent synergy. When you do identify your use case that you want to move forward with, do not aim for a big bang AI launch. I know they seem really cool, but it also takes a while to build. So instead, I think you should take more of an MVP approach. I like to call it an MBA, which is a minimal viable agents. So what's the simplest, smallest version of your agentic system that can deliver tangible value and allow you to start learning? And by learning, I mean learning on how to improve it. Working with AI requires a more iterative and experiential approach. So your roadmap must handle for that. Next, we tackle accountability and governance. So this is where the rubber really meets the road. As AI agents become more autonomous, a critical question emerges, and that is who is responsible when something goes wrong? When an agent sends an inappropriate response to a user, when those agents go down, when OpenAI and Anthropic's APIs no longer work, do you have a failover mode? Many leaders think responsible AI slows them down, but when you look at the AI accident database, you actually see a 61 increase in AI-related incidents between 2023 and 2024 alone. And as AI agents have come, I wonder what it would be like for the numbers for 2024 to 2025. So as we're seeing, risks are no longer hypothetical. It is a reality that we must anticipate. So at this point, it's naive to believe that your agentic workflows will be perfect. You must anticipate harms up front so you can mitigate them. This is much bigger than compliance. It's more so about building trust. So this should be including collaboration between domain experts, PMs, compliance, and engineers. With that being said, you do want to establish clear accountability frameworks and escalation pathways. So this means creating robust audit trails so you understand why an agent made a particular decision. You can use Lime or Shaft. Those are some frameworks that you can use for a baseline for this. And then I also recommend doing a responsible AI evaluation framework for yourself and recording those results. That way you can create your own benchmarks for as a framework for bias. It also means defining ownership of models and products that you're using and having a clear pathway for human intervention when an agent decides to make it comes across an edge case and you have to handle for that. So with these types of frameworks in place, you build a foundation of trust that shapes and shifts your entire organizational culture. Finally, we come to ethical deployment. So this is non-negotiable. This is where you ensure your alignment with your organization values. So responsible AI isn't a bolt-on. It must be incorporated at every stage of the AgentOps lifecycle. So this means actively working on bias detection and mitigation, from the very beginning to ensure your systems are fair. It also means building in robust security and privacy from the ground up, especially when agents handle sensitive data. So you must have proactive safeguards in place. So think of things like anomaly detection, clear agents or clear thresholds for agent behavior, and a plan for what to do when those thresholds are crossed. You also need a solid incidents plan and rollback procedures when things go wrong. So a little bit of what I just described is SRE, but I think that your AI engineer should have an end-to-end understanding from the planning phase all the way to the deployment and post-deployment phase too to handle for these types of things. It's more work, of course, with the engineers, but I think that a solid engineer should have that stuff in place anyways. You shouldn't wait for something to go wrong and hand it off to someone else to figure out what was wrong with their code. Data privacy and security is also important here too. So you do want to prevent unauthorized use access. So there have been cases where people didn't have access to certain systems and they were able to find a loophole through using the company's agentic chatbot to obtain information because IAM rules were not in place. So imagine if they were able to access someone's PII and they shared it, or even it was just found out. That's a huge fine that the company's going to get hit with. So many cyber attacks on agents right now are the same traditional attacks that occur without those agents, but people are missing it because they believe AI alone is enough to stop it. They think that just because the AI can think, that should be enough. But in reality, it's just, statistical pattern matching. It's a lot more complex than what people think. So just like you secure and manage your databases, you do have to secure your agents. One example is people hacking into unused, forgotten agents because people forget to shut them down. So people will probe and see if they can hit the API endpoints of those agents, and it's not secure, and no one's monitoring it. So they're easily able to hack into those agents down the road. So that's another use case that you have to think about. Um, so this is a leadership mandate that protects your brand and builds your long-term value. When you get this right, you build trust with not only the business and the stakeholders, but customers as well. And that is your ultimate competitive advantage in this landscape. So let's make this concrete with a real world scenario. So imagine we're optimizing customer support within the financial industry. This is going to be a high value, high stakes use case that you typically can see. So first, we're going to do a process assessment. So we'll analyze the current workflow for customer support reps. How do they find information? What's their ticketing system like with receiving that information? How do they route tickets? And what are their common pain points? This is a crucial step to identify the gaps where an agent can provide true value and to see if some of those processes need to be reworked anyways. Again, the workflows are just very important. Next, we'll look at data quality. So we need to make sure the documentation that the customer reps are using is up to date and accurate. And that's because the agent is going to need a reliable source of truth. Usually when it comes to these type of solutions, it's going to require something called RAG, which is basically a document database that's going to store all the context that your agent's going to need because that doesn't come standard with LLM models. And then once you do all of that, you're going to assemble a well-rounded team. So that's a product manager, that's engineers, and also the customer service reps because they are the domain experts, and then also finance experts as well too. Because domain knowledge is important. The engineers alone do not have that. So this team will then take all of this information to a meeting and they'll sit down and discuss important KPIs, intended outcomes, governance, business logic, regulations as well. And then we're going to use all of that to create a pilot. And that pilot typically should last within 6 to 8 weeks after you're doing all the ideation. And that's just going to be used. Let's say you come up with the use case of automating responses for basic mortgage inquiries. And so while cost savings is important, that's the main tracker that people use for ROI. We do want to track more meaningful metrics depending on what your use case is. For us, we have the customer support bot. So we're going to want to track things like customer satisfaction, agent accuracy and precision, human agent morale. Are they less stressed after deploying the chatbot? Do they feel like they have more time to handle complex questions? And then, of course, the number of tickets closed and the time that it takes to close those tickets on average. So you want to document everything throughout the project. Excuse me, my nose chose to run right now when that's the worst possible time. But sure, if the pilot is a success, can you now have a repeatable framework to scale responsibly across other areas of the business that also have high use cases or high chances of moving a needle for your company? My favorite part. Okay. So the disciplined approach for deploying trustworthy quality agentic solutions is what we call AgentOps or agent operations. So it is a critical framework for managing the entire lifecycle of AI agents. And as you can see, AgentOps encompasses everything from the initial planning phase to coding and prompting, testing and deploying, and then crucially, the feedback loop. So unlike traditional MLOps or DevOps, AgentOps addresses the unique complexities of autonomous agents. So this is with their decision making, this is their interactions, and then their potential for unintended consequences. So for leaders, it's important to recognize the strategic imperative of managing these systems to ensure they deliver value responsibly and effectively. And again, AgentOps is a team effort. This belongs to more than just the engineers. Engineers don't have the complete domain knowledge to effectively build and test these agents end to end on their own. But to keep it simple, because I know we don't have a lot of time to go over this, I did want to talk a little bit about the phases in depth. So planning, of course, that's where you're going to define your clear goals. And this is where you're sitting in a round table with your stakeholders, talking about compliance as well, too. These are your key questions like, are you going to build or buy an agent solution? What's our success metric for this? For instance, for the customer support bot, it would be customer satisfaction. Also, how is this moving the needle? Is this cost reduction? Is this process efficiency? Are we actually making more money? You're going to focus on business outcomes and not just cool AI capabilities, because at the end of the day, customers don't care that AI is built in, they care about value. Next is code. So standard software development for your agent's logic and tools. So here's a tip that I have. Don't get lost in the AI hype and rush too fast. good software engineering practices still matter here and will benefit you in the long run, especially as you continue to scale these agentic solutions over time. Next is prompt. And this is where you are designing how your agent thinks and communicates. Of course, and how you're going to have to have your branding in here as well too. How you want your agent to respond, how you want it to read and think about things. All that's very important. That's also why I say you should keep a good document store so you can easily reference those things and have the engineers add that to the prompts. But a good tip is to create a prompt registry. I think Prompt Layer is one of them that you can use. And that's for consistency, easier updates and rollbacks in case your agents, the prompts are not good, or maybe you switch to a new model and you need to deprecate those. And then next is text and test and evals, and that's just verifying your agent works correctly and safely. So you'll have a checklist for functional testing, performance testing, and security testing. And evals are big here too. I think that you should use multiple evaluation metrics or methods. So you might be using industry benchmarks. You should use your own internal benchmarks as well too. Of course, to have LLM as a judge, but I also still believe that you should have humans to test your agent as well too. Because what can you do if your LLM that is the judge is actually incorrect and you don't know because you haven't sent a team in to actually see what's going on and verify if your judge is even a good judge. Next is release, and that is packaging your agent for production. So PMs are definitely going to be involved in this too. This is where you're going to do version management, documentation, and also release notes that show the features that the agentic solution. Next is deploy, and that's getting your agents into production safely. So DevOps, consider phasing rollouts across environments. If you have multiple ones like, development, pre-prod, stage, prod. And you might also have different regions as well too. Just think about that as you're managing risk. Perhaps you'll have a whole test cycle after deployment period. If that test cycle is successful, then you're released to the next region, the next environment, so on and so forth. Next is operations. So this is keeping your agent running smooth day to day. These are your SRE people. This is where you're doing the resource planning, the incident management, and seriously, run books, they're your friend. You don't want to wait till something goes wrong to actually troubleshoot or try to figure everything out. If you have run books or a good idea of what to do and how to look for things, that documentation will really save you. Monitoring, this is where you're going to watch how your agent performs in the real world. And you're going to be looking at things like uptime, response time, task completion rates, user satisfaction, and also alerting. You're going to want to set up those alerts for key metrics that matter to users. Some of these are implicit signals and some of these are explicit signals. So this is like a thumbs down or thumbs up option, telling you it's a bad response. If there's hateful responses, you want to make sure there is some type of sentiment analysis checker in here as well too. Also just seeing if they're not understanding user intent. So these are not just technical signals that you're going to be looking for. And the next is your feedback. And this is gathering insights to improve your agent. This is a PM goldmine, in my opinion. We're going to look at user reviews, feature requests, any performance data, and any error reports. And then you use that to go right back to phase one of the planning stage. And that's the beauty of the life cycle. It just is continuous. Okay, so what are the critical leadership skills for this AgentOps era? I have a list of them, but I'm not going to do that to y'all. One is about effectively managing hybrid human AI teams. I really do think that agents aren't there to replace people. It's just to augment workflows and make them free up time for, the tasks that workers actually want to do or the more complex things that they can finally get to. And then you're going to also want to foster a culture of responsible innovation, making sure people are, planning for when things go wrong, talking to each other and collaborating across the different roles, things of that nature. And then finding the delicate balance between automation and human oversight. All of this cannot be done without proper change management, which starts at the culture level. When done right, responsible agent ops becomes a massive business differentiator, especially during a time where every company is seemingly doing the same exact thing. So it builds trust with customers and stakeholders and creates sustainable AI-driven growth that truly transforms your organization. I don't believe you have to have an official leader title to be considered a leader. If you are an employee, your thoughts and actions shape the organization. So technically, to me, everyone's a leader just in their own ways. And then, yes, the conclusion. So we've explored operational strategy and change management. We talked about making accountability and governance into the AI lifecycle. We've also done the pilot creation process and then talked about the robustness of AgentOps. So my call of action for you today is very simple and actionable. You're going to start with one vertical. You can also audit one workflow that you might have and then build one small dedicated AgentOps team. It might just be you, depending on, how big you want to take this or how small you want to take this. But I think it'll help you to get into the good flow of understanding organizational strategy and just how to think about technical products from a business point of view. So you definitely begin your journey. If you're grappling with how to build these capabilities or want to discuss a specific use case, I love chatting about these things. And I'm very nosy. I like to see all the different industries and what they're doing. So I'll definitely have no problem talking about that. But we can talk about those strategies and your new channel challenges. So I'm here to help you lead that change. I think it's possible. I just think that a lot of people have to hear the truth about how to go about things versus what we can see from a lot of like AI influencers and stuff like that. But anywho, thank you all for your time and attention. I know we have 5 minutes left, so if you want questions, I'm not sure. Otherwise, we can take it outside. Okay. Yes. Hi.
That so at the deep side of the or I could definitely net thinking in AI software that you work in like the sensitive the big process or the pipeline the
I'm, s- I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that again?
yes the big process for your teaching the AI
What's the intake process? Okay. As far as how I'm going to figure out what I'm going to build.
methodology that you're using with the pipeline where you go through what needs to be done and then it goes into the research mentioned
Yes, for sure.
uh, continuous and big process. We keep coming in and then it goes.
So it just depends on the organization. For me, I'm in the past, I tend to be based on just a specific team, and it usually was sorted around whatever was needed at the moment. But for instance, right now, I'm now a pre-sales engineer. So we actually start out with identifying a bunch of different use cases as possible, and then we'll sit down and do a workshop with that team, and then we'll figure out which ones actually move the needle. So for instance, it's based off of which ones are closer to your business goals and really matter to you, which ones do you actually have good data quality for, or either maybe you won't need that much data quality to get this up and running, because if data is a huge thing, then we should probably step away from it if you don't have the infrastructure for it. Another one is cost as well too. Resources, depending on if you want to go in-house and build this out yourself, or if you want some type of pre-made solution. But of course, it's based off of regulatory standards. If you have a lot of, privatized data that you need to use, you probably don't want to touch some proprietary agent solution, especially if they haven't really shown you evals and what they're capable of doing with testing, because I've noticed a lot of them don't offer that. And that's kind of scary to me. But yes, there's that. And then also just how soon we need to get this thing up and running. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Have you but there's any type of line with the like healthcare or event?
Not yet. I really want to, though. That's on my list. Yes. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Let the lady go first.
I please thank you. I do it in management.
See,
It's different,
it is.
but I while you were showing that you know, a visual like the different stuff here. There's a lot of things that the comment is the zoning sign and I split perfect already that. So
Oh, very cool.
in the finance industry, you talked about, regulation and so there's a lot of things in common more than I thought.
He,
And I really like the fact that you put the customer at the center of it, but just we also I think in there to got a very funny one. So I think very interesting that really went through this in detail just to feedback because it helps to someone who's not in the single
mhm.
connect off and word.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that because I'm a DevOps girl, like with my background, but I just dabble in data and AI. I shouldn't say that because I really do a lot more. But my before I transitioned into like a full-time AI engineering role, I did DevOps for like 8 years. And I've seen the importance of it across all different industries and also all the new technologies. And a lot of people think it's just some specialized thing you throw to the back whenever you're ready to release a product, but it really matters to like everyone, especially the business itself and not just the technical team. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's about the customer and what they like and what they don't like. And if we're not proactive about making sure we see what they need and don't need, that is the fastest way to like failure. So thank you. I really appreciate that because I'm trying to spread the good word. So yeah, yourself.
It's so uh like just watching biggest influence of is looking to the rest of it. What kind of what do you envision that that's
Okay, so like the future of agent ops or what it could look like, or are you saying just how to get started?
yeah, it could look like
Okay, sure. So at the root of it all, again, I really do think that people should be versioning their prompts. I think that they're looked at as something secondary because it's technically not code, but it is code because it's a series of like it's still automation. It's just, written out if and statements on how to respond to stuff, but people don't really see it that way, which is funny to me. I think that the versioning of that is important, especially as we're seeing the release of new models come out very quickly. And one prompt on one model won't behave the same as on another model. You quickly see that, even if it's from the same model provider. And then another thing is too, like I said, the failover switch. We see where like, OpenAI, their models go down quite frequently sometimes now. And then if you have a failover mode and you have to switch to somebody else, those same prompts won't work. So you have to make sure to pay attention to that the prompting, and how that can work because rollbacks won't always help you in that case. Another thing is I'm looking forward to more automation when it comes to the actual evals part, especially when it comes to creating your own benchmarks. A lot of people are using benchmarks that are they're not even industry standard. They're built by a lot of researchers, and I respect them, but it's different from the real world use cases where you might have messy prompts or like a customer's irate and they're cussing inside of like the input. Like you have to handle for that stuff, or it's like written really weird or like it's not legible. You have to handle for those types of things versus a pretty code base. And then also, they don't stand up a real productionized environment as well too. They just have some type of sandbox they work out of. So that's why I think people should create their own benchmarks. A good example of this is Salesforce. They are lucky because they were very data driven beforehand. So they have a lot of data to pull from to test. But not only do they create their own models, they created their own internal benchmarks. And of course, they've shared a lot of it with everybody. But I think that they have a really good framework for how companies should do things when it comes to building their own internal solutions. Writer AI is really good at that too, but they help a lot of businesses with building out their agentic solutions. I am over time. And if y'all would like to talk to me, I'm going to be outside because I'm not trying to step on the next speaker's toes. But thank you all so much.
Addiction.